Shalom, everyone. This week's Parsha is Parshat Vayigash. And it opens with Yehuda approaching Yosef. He doesn't know that he's Yosef. And this is part of the whole story of after the brothers have sold Yosef, and Yosef spent 12 years in jail, but by interpreting the dreams of the butler and the baker, and then 2 years later, the dreams of Pharaoh, he becomes the de facto ruler of Egypt, the most powerful person in the world. And when the brothers come down to Egypt in order to buy grain because there was a famine, Yosef recognized them, but they didn't recognize Yosef. So Yosef realizes that this is his opportunity to bring the family back together, but he does it in almost a little bit of a strange way, but he concocts this whole plan in which to get the brothers to understand what they have done. And so now Yosef is holding Benjamin, and Yehuda comes to plead for Benjamin's life, that he will be a slave or a servant to Yosef, and let Benjamin go home, because if Benjamin doesn't go home, Yaakov's life will be over. He will just be so broken. And this moves Yosef to reveal himself. And so we see the turning point of the whole story was Yehuda's willingness to give up his life for his brother. And the series is called Living with the Times. And these stories are archetypal. And so this idea of, in Hebrew, mesirut nefesh, being willing to give over one's whole soul, to give it all for a cause or someone else, is what brought the family back together. So here in Israel right now, after a period of tremendous division in Israel, the events of October 7th brought the people of Israel together in an incredible unity of purpose. It's a war that we didn't ask for. We really don't want, but it's a war that has to be fought and has to be won. And there's much talk over the last years about Generation Z, that there are all kinds of not so positive things about Generation Z. And here in Israel also, there was a whole question about where was the younger generation going to. And here we see an amazing thing, is that when the war broke out, so before that, because of the division in Israel, there was even a question if some people were going to continue to do their reserve duty or even be drafted. It got that bad. And then the war broke out, and all the definitions of left, center, right, religious, not religious, just faded away. And soldiers not only reported for duty, but many, many soldiers that actually didn't have to volunteered. Tens of thousands of young Israelis returned from around the world, and they were drafted into a a very, very dangerous war. And what we're seeing now is an incredible display of Mesirut Nefesh, that our soldiers are literally putting their lives on their line 24/7. And it's not only in Gaza, up north also. There's a whole war going on in northern Israel also. And unfortunately, every day soldiers are dying. So here we see this one case of Yehuda showing Mesirut Nefesh for his brother, but these stories are archetypal. And this is what leads to the unity of Israel. The Lubavitcher Rebbe once said that the greatest merit that Israel has to be back in Israel now and to be able to hold on to the land and thrive is the willingness of the army to give their lives at any moment to defend what we have here. And that is what is happening. There's a particular letter from a young soldier, Ben Zussman. It's gone viral. Maybe many of you have read about it or heard about it. But he left we'll call it his will with his parents before he was called up. And he said in it, I'm just not word by word, I'm just paraphrasing, it said, if you're reading this letter, it must mean that something happened to me. He told them not to read it unless something happened to him. Unfortunately, he was killed in battle. And when his parents read the letter, this is what they found. That he said, if you're reading this letter, something obviously happened to me, but I don't want you to be sad, and I don't want you to mourn for your whole lives for me. You have to know, not only did I know the risk I was taking by going into the army, but it was my greatest privilege, and it brought me so much joy. And he said, even if I die defending my country and my people, this is the greatest joy that I can think of. This is my purpose. And so he told his family not to overly mourn for him. He even said that at his funeral he wanted music, and he wanted people to recognize that his self-sacrifice was the pinnacle of his life. Now this is just, it's made the rounds here, and people are talking about it, but this letter represents what all of our soldiers are going through. So many parents now are mourning for their children, and so many children are mourning for their father. And of course, after October 14th, so many women and elderly and children were quite literally slaughtered, that there is a lot of trauma and a lot of mourning. But the people of Israel right now are so united and supportive of what our army is doing, no matter what the world is saying. And even one of the spokesmen of America said that the lengths that Israel is going to try to protect civilians in Gaza, he said outright, America wouldn't even do this. Israel has gone out of its way, but war is a terrible thing. And people die. Terrible things happen. But this is not a war that we started. This is our, I believe, fourth, maybe fifth war with Hamas in the last 17 years. Tens of thousands of rockets have been shot with the intent of killing civilians. And it's only because we have the Iron Dome that they haven't succeeded. So the people of Israel are united behind our soldiers, and we should realize the incredible sacrifice that is being made here in Israel for the sake of not only every person in Israel, but every Jew that will have a home to come to, and truthfully is fighting a war for the whole world against the terrorism that has plagued this world for a full generation now. And it's time we have to put an end to it. And so, Bezrat Hashem, everyone should be very aware of the self-sacrifice that is happening here, and to be praying for our hostages to come home, to be praying to keep our soldiers safe, to be praying to keep Jews all over the world safe from the dangers of the anti-Semitism. And with God's help, the world one day will appreciate what Israel did for the whole world.